Splashdown for SpaceX as Bob Behnken and Doug Hurley return to Earth. A dying star cluster found. Astronomers say it shouldn't have existed. And Amazon set to compete with SpaceX as the FCC approves their Project Kuiper. It's Tuesday, August 4, 2020. This is Talkin Science. I'm Matt Miller, and Ahsoka and Keely are off on day 4 of August 2020. Can you help us help them? bit.ly/TZ Guide Dogs.
With the latest science and space news 5 days a week across Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts and YouTube. This is Talkin Science with Dr. Brad Tucker and Matt Miller.
Well, he's here on the Trekzone Zoom call. It must mean it's Tuesday, must mean it's Talkin Science Tuesday. Dr. Brad Tucker, happy Tuesday.
How's it going?
Good. I was just trying to work out how many times I could say Tuesday in our intro. Turns out you can say it 3 times in our intro, Brad. What a week in science. We've got some really cool stories coming up.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's always amazing when we start compiling the list of what we're going to talk about for the week. Just what happens in a week, right? And nothing happens on the weekend. Let's be serious. So really, it's like 5 days, maybe really 4, because no one actually does anything on a Friday either. So it's all squished into really 4 days of science action-packed fun.
And we are going to dive into those here on our Tuesday show, wrapping everything up or highlighting everything before we dive into the stories of the week throughout the week. But I have to mention your socials, of course, Twitter at btucker22, Dr. Brad Tucker on Facebook. People should like and follow you for the absolute latest science stuff. Trekzone's all over social media. Just search for Trekzone. And I'm on Twitter doing the Twitter thing at Mirrormat86. Brad, let's dive in.
Talking Science headlines.
Brad, what a week we have. First up, on to the headlines, and Perseverance, after a few hiccups, has finally launched.
Yeah, look, it was a pretty successful launch, and so far, flying. They had the interesting hiccup where they had to go into hibernation mode because the spacecraft or the capsule got too cold, and they realized it got too cold because it went into the Earth's shadow. The Earth does cast a shadow into space. Obviously, if you go into it, just like shadows on the ground here, it's a bit cooler. In space, it's just minus 150 degrees Celsius, which meant everything got a little bit too cool, so they went into a temporary hibernation mode. It made it out fine and did everything fine, but added some, I guess, extra excitement to a launch where you don't care if there's excitement. Boring is your friend.
Exactly right. Virgin Galactic have unveiled the design of their cockpit/cabin for their private space venture. Very futuristic looking.
Yeah, very futuristic looking, very built for, comfort and style, over squishing it in. It looks like it's a first class cabin, right? It's not a coach where everyone's just shoved in and they have as many people as they possibly can. You have lots of room, lots of ports to look at. And so, it's quite nice to see what the actual views, what the actual style, what the actual feel will be of Virgin Galactic. As we've mentioned, they're getting really close to a launch of their first customers. So it's not surprising they unveiled this to kind of tease what people will start to be seeing when those first people go up as space tourists sometime soon.
Talking Science, stories of the week.
And first up this week, Brad, SpaceX has successfully splashed down. Demo-2 is complete and a very big success.
Look, I would think everyone would say all around a very big success. And that's what Demo-2 showed, is that SpaceX is ready to reliably send humans into space.
It is the first time that NASA astronauts have splashed down from a mission since the Apollo era.
Kind of amazing to think that you've gone back to the old ways, but that's what they were always planning to do, splashing down in the ocean. There's a bit of different ease rather than trying to land the space shuttle, because when the space shuttle landed, it was essentially just a giant glider, right? It wasn't an airplane where they can maneuver it and land it really every airport. It came down and they glided to the Earth. Now, there's good reasons why that worked and good reasons why they did that, but that's not the easiest thing to do. And it limits your options. Where here, they had 7 potential landing sites in the ocean. Boats were ready. In fact, there's a great photo online taken from the space station, actually, as it passed overhead, where you see splashdown and you see this huge amount of boats racing to the location to greet the astronauts. So it's definitely a reliable way. And look, the Russian Soyuz has been landing down with parachutes in Kazakhstan, though, for decades. So it's a fairly reliable, simple, straightforward way. So not surprising. The biggest thing here is they were just waiting to make sure they didn't land in the middle of a hurricane, which is literally brewing off the coast, because that's not what you want to welcome you to Earth.
For everyone wanting to catch our full chat on this one, look out for episode number 427. Brad, our next story of the week. I'm not sure how I feel for this star cluster. Its very existence is being called into question by some astronomers.
Yeah, look, that's a bit of a harsh call, right? You know, why do you exist? What's your purpose? You shouldn't be here. You know, that's not very accepting. But you know, this is exactly what it is. It's you know, the Phoenix cluster with this new study led by Australian PhD student, in fact, has really been shown that it is quite interesting in terms of its makeup, and therefore it's a bit surprising that it does exist. And these are the things that we do like in science and space. These things that shouldn't exist or we think exist are the things that usually tell us the most because they challenge our beliefs and theories.
And this study was part of a project to study stellar streams in the Milky Way. It's known as the Southern Stellar Stream Spectroscopic Survey. I did that on one take. And it was discovered, the Phoenix stream was discovered in 2016.
Yeah, so, you know, S5, as it's kind of colloquially called, was to find new streams. And really a stream here is something, a cluster or dwarf galaxy, because sometimes a dwarf galaxy becomes a globular cluster. So some grouping of stars. And as it approaches the Milky Way and the gravity of the Milky Way pulls it, it starts to rip it apart. So we think that these streams are signs of previous interactions with galaxies or other usually dwarf galaxies around the Milky Way, or at least dynamical changes in the structure and speed and the movement of the Milky Way. So it tells us a lot about the evolution of the galaxy as a whole. So finding these streams is always quite an interesting and important thing. And we find things like the Magellanic Stream. There's a very famous stream from the two Magellanic Clouds, these two dwarf galaxies you can see in the southern skies. We even know Andromeda, our big neighbor galaxy, creates its own kind of streams of its dwarf galaxies. So it tells us a lot of that, about that process. So finding new ones is important, but then also finding or trying to understand the origins, the ages, the dating of the streams is a bigger thing. And that's where this discovery is quite cool.
Brad, for people wanting to listen to our full chat on this one, they can look for episode number 428.
You can get social with Trekzone. Australia's unofficial home of Star Trek is everywhere you are. Just search for Trekzone.
And Brad, finally this week, the FCC in America has approved Amazon's plan, Project Kuiper they're calling it. It's their plan to compete with SpaceX's Starlink.
Yeah, we've talked about even with Starlink that, or OneWeb, that there was more companies coming online, and Amazon was looking at one of them. They've just been waiting on their approvals from the FCC and the Federal Communication Group in the U.S. that regulates communications both on the ground and in space with satellites. And they just got the tick of approval to launch it. Now, there's a few other things they have to get approval for, but it just moved that project to the forefront. So now you really have 3 different companies now building their own satellite constellations to provide global internet. So the race is really heating up.
It absolutely is. And OneWeb has had some troubles in the last few months. They're sort of in limbo at the moment, waiting for some new donors if they come along. But SpaceX is launching those satellites every other week, it seems, with hundreds of them up there now. And part of Amazon's license is to launch half of the constellation by 2026 and the rest by 2029. So expediting this plan and really getting these satellites up into orbit and creating healthy competition, I think, for global internet, global satellite internet.
Yeah, look, as you said, the race is really heating up. OneWeb has a bit of financial trouble, as you said. They do have a buyer. It's just trying to figure out what that looks like. Obviously, SpaceX, they're not going to slow down. The finance is there. And then we look at Kuiper, Amazon's project. Amazon, which is essentially Jeff Bezos, has invested $10 billion. So, really putting his money where he thinks it should be, and just like with SpaceX, going to make a success. And when we look at the competition, between SpaceX and Amazon to some degree, right, or Blue Origin, which is kind of what it is, essentially Elon Musk versus Jeff Bezos, they are really trying to carve out similar niches in space with competition, but doing it with their own bit of personal style, slightly different company aims, which is great, and also making it and putting the investment there to make it work.
And Brad, our full chat on this one is episode 429. Well, thanks, Brad. Looking forward to diving into the stories of the week for the next 3 eps. We're going to go live on episode number 430. It's a big week of Talkin' Science, as it is every week. As you say, these things are jam-packed into 4 days of announcements, and we wrap it all up on a Tuesday.